Hello everyone, this is Sarfraz from Aristotle Prep and we are looking at question number 54 from the OG 13 critical reasoning chapter. What we have here actually is a fairly tricky question, mainly because of the way it is worded. A lot of students find it very confusing to understand the question stem itself. Not the question stem, I mean the stimulus. And the question stem, by the way, is the other problem because a lot of students can't make out whether it's an assumption question or what is it. Whereas if you read the question stem, it says if the statements above are true, which of the following must be true, which means it's clearly an inference question, not an assumption question, because it assumes that the above statements are true. Then which of these must be true, which of these can be inferred. So it's an inference question, it is not an assumption question. And let's read the stimulus, which says the fewer restrictions there are on the advertising of legal services, the more lawyers there are who advertise their services. Okay, the fewer restrictions, the more lawyers advertise, and the lawyers who advertise a specific service usually charge less for that service than the lawyers who do not advertise. Perfect, understand. So far we understand everything. Therefore, if the state removes any of its current restrictions, such as the one against advertisements that do not specify fee arrangements, so if the state removes any of its restrictions, overall consumer legal costs will be lower than if the state retains its current restrictions. So the argument basically says the fewer restrictions, the more lawyers advertise, and when lawyers advertise, they typically charge less. So it concludes that if government removes a particular kind of restriction, the legal cost for people will go down. So what is the inference over there? The mistake a lot of students make is they try to make a prediction, which is they try to come up with an assumption, whereas the question is asking you for an inference. So A says, some lawyers who now advertise will charge more for specific services if they do not have to specify fee arrangements in the advertisements. But there's nothing in the argument which can lead me to conclude that when they will charge more. The argument doesn't even go into that territory. B says more consumers will use legal services if there are fewer restrictions on the advertising of legal services. We have no idea. Even if it looks logical to you, the stimulus makes no mention of any such thing. So can't be inferred. C says if the restriction against advertisements that do not specify fee arrangements is removed, more lawyers will advertise their services. And this can straight away be inferred from the argument because that is what the argument says, that the fewer restrictions, the more lawyers want to advertise. And the more they advertise, the less they charge. So C says if restriction against advertisements is removed, more lawyers will advertise. Looks like a very good answer to me. Hold on to it. D says if more lawyers advertise lower prices for specific services, some lawyers who do not advertise will also charge less than they currently charge for those services. Again, it looks logical. If you use common sense or if you look at the market or industry in general, that might actually happen. But nothing in the stimulus to suggest that something like this will happen. So remember, never use common sense or your knowledge. So D is out. E says, if the only restrictions on the advertising of legal services were those that apply to every type of advertising, most lawyers will advertise the services. We have no idea. So from the options given to us, C is the best option. It's the only one that can be inferred from the information in the stimulus. In case you got this question wrong earlier, it is because you were looking for an assumption. You were trying to predict an answer, and that is the reason you got it wrong. I hope you've understood it now. It's a tough question though. I would give it a difficulty rating of 4 on 5. Have a nice day.